Approaching, we thought we'd do our part by inviting Chicago author Michele Weiner-Davis in to talk about her new book, The Sex-Starved Marriage, a couple's guide to boosting their marriage libido. Michele, nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
You got a lot of attention with your divorce-busting book.
I did.
And now you've moved on.
On to sex.
And are you still in private practice here in the area?
Yes.
And you're a marriage therapist?
That's right.
Let me throw this statistic at you, because I want to know where this came from. More than 40 million Americans are in a low-sex or no-sex marriage, you say. How do you know that?
Well, there are a lot of studies that are really pointing to the fact that 1 out of every 3 couples struggles with a sexual desire gap. But let me back up a little bit and tell you what a sex-starved marriage is, because unlike what you might be thinking, it's not about marriages that have no sex. A sex-starved marriage is when one spouse is desperately yearning for more physical touch, more closeness physically, more sex, and the other spouse is disinterested for a variety of reasons and figures, well, what's the big deal? It's just sex. But to the other to the other spouse, it's a really big deal because it's about feeling wanted, feeling loved, feeling close, feeling appreciated. And when this major disconnect happens, this misunderstanding, what happens is they stop being intimate on all levels. They stop sitting next to each other on the couch. They stop laughing at each other's jokes. They don't talk meaningfully anymore. And when that happens, the marriage is at risk for infidelity and divorce. But the good news is that by taking small steps, there are things that couples can do to boost the desire and bring back that emotional closeness.
Is that the symptom or the cause, though, what you just said?
Well, you know, you're asking a good question, because conventional wisdom suggests that if a marriage is on the rocks and the sex life isn't so great, you fix the emotional part. You get them to spend time together and talk, and the rest will fall into place. But I'm telling you, Bob, because I've been working with couples for 20 years, and the opposite is also true, that many times couples are stuck in their marriage because their sex life is really icy. And so what I've noticed is that when people pay more attention to their physical relationship, maybe even if their hearts aren't in it first, it's incredible in terms of the kinds of emotional closeness that can come from that.
Men are going to love your theory.
They do. But you know something?
What about women?
I'm going to tell you something. You hit on a stereotype that isn't right, because everyone thinks when you think about low sexual desire, it's always as if women have a corner on the market, and I'm telling you that's not true. I'm convinced, and I've been working with couples for a long time, that low desire in men is America's best-kept secret. There are millions of men who are not interested in sex, and it's not because the sexual machinery isn't working. It's because they're not interested for very much the same reasons that a lot of women aren't interested. But they're not talking about it because they're embarrassed and they're ashamed. And because,
well, men don't talk about anything.
Well, they'll talk about how great their sex lives are if they're having it. But they're not about to walk into the locker room and talk about the fact that they're just not in the mood. And the really sad part about that, because no one's talking about it, is the women who are married to these guys think, like, what's wrong with me? I'm the only woman in the world whose husband isn't chasing me around. And I want to get the message out that this is not so. This is not a gender-specific problem. This applies to many, many couples.
You write about the desire gap, you call it, and talk about the catch-22 with that.
Well, it's like this. If I'm a more sexual person, I'm not going to invest myself in this relationship unless you are sexual with me. So I pull back and I go in a cave. If I'm a more emotional person, I'm not going to invest myself in the sexual relationship unless you show me some affection and some closeness. So I'll wait for you to change, you wait for me to change, and the marriage goes down the tubes. So what I say to people, both people are responsible for stepping in the middle and making a change. I want to tell you something, that to the higher spouse person, the higher sexual person, my advice to you is to, I kind of jokingly say, use the F word. So often these people are angry because they feel rejected, and either they're not talking or they're very critical. When I say use the F word, talk about your feelings, let me give you an example. I was working with a couple in my practice, we'll call them Joe and Mary. Joe said, you know, we've been married 15 years and there really is only a 2-hour window of opportunity on Saturday night when I think she might be receptive. And I turned to her, and without hesitation, she said, Michele, that's true. And so I turned back to Joe and I said, tell me, what's that like to be in this marriage? He looked at her for the first time, talked about his feelings. He said to her, you know, when I reach out for you and you're not there for me, I feel so rejected. I wonder if you're still attracted to me. I wonder if you still love me. And when you go to sleep and I'm staring at the ceiling, I feel really lonely in this marriage. And you know, this woman looked at him and for the first time grabbed out, reached his hand for his hand and said, You know, whenever you touch me, all I ever think about is whether I'm in the mood or not. I never, ever think about what it's like to be in your shoes. I am so sorry. So sometimes really talking about what's going on can make a difference.
I'm glad to hear that the F word is feelings.
That's right, sometimes.
So, looking at the thousands and thousands of books written about this subject, it usually goes something like this. Communicate, talk about other things, connect on other issues, and then intimacy will follow.
Right.
You're doing it the other way, really, aren't you?
Well, now I have advice for the low desire person, which is exactly what you're talking about. I think those folks should really adopt what I refer to as the Nike philosophy, Bob. Just do it. And I wish I had $1, honestly, for each time I heard a person say to me in my practice, Michelle, I wasn't in the mood when we started to be intimate, but when we got into it, I really, really enjoyed myself. I would be a very wealthy woman. And there is some exciting new research that suggests that for 50% of the population, desire doesn't just happen. They have to make it happen.
But you say forget the past in your book, don't hold grudges, and concentrate on what you can make the future. Well, hey, that's easier said than done.
Well, but I'm telling you, you know, research has shown beyond a shadow of a doubt that the quickest way to change how you feel or how you think is not by sitting around analyzing your navel. It's by taking an action. And if you're more responsive to your partner's advances, you can begin to feel more desire. We have a multi-billion-dollar industry that's built around helping people analyze why they aren't feeling desire and what they can do about it, but we're not really urging people to take the first step. And when people take the first step, it's incredible how much more sensual and sexual they can feel.
Michelle, as you would say in your office, we have to stop now.
Oh, no.
But thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And again, the book is called The Sex-Starved Marriage, A Couple's Guide to Boosting Their Marriage Libido. And for more information, you can go to networkchicago.com. Best of luck to you.